Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being there. This is Rafa once again coming to you with Mystic Times. Today, we have a wonderful episode, a great conversation we're going to have with my new friend, Timothy Grossman. We're going to try to stick to the topic of Reiki and how it's useful and what it is and how people can implement this stuff in their lives. But we also had a very beautiful conversation, like a pre-conversation yesterday, where we got to know each other a little better. And I'm sure there's other things that probably will come up today because Timothy, you've had a pretty interesting. I don't know if a pretty interesting all of your life, or if it just became interesting once you I don't know, once you joined the military and had all those very unique experiences. First of all, I just want to welcome you onto the show, and I don't mean to say that your life before that wasn't interesting. I mean, we actually didn't talk about your life before that, but being that you're on a spiritual path, I'm pretty sure it must have been a pretty wild ride from the very start. Yeah.
It was pretty crazy. Yeah. But good because it informed, a lot of things even after the military.
Yeah. So I know you've been working recently, and you just sent me the link actually for this guided meditation that you're doing. Maybe we could start over there and yeah, just and maybe bring in a little bit of your backstory to let people know where you're coming from with this.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So Veterans Day is coming up this just in a few days. And you know, uh a lot of people look at me and they say, well, you're a vet. Yeah, yeah, I'm a veteran, combat vet. Uh but I guess to begin with, everyone suffers trauma. And the impetus for creating this YouTube video is called a meditation on the world within. It is it's dedicated to some friends, people I've known over the years who haven't, you know, haven't made it. They're not here with us anymore. Um, and I think that there's a very deep component to trauma that affects the spirit, affects the soul. It's a psycho-spiritual issue, not just a moral issue. Um, and over the years, we've heard people like David Trelevin and Gabor Mate and uh, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk say, "Well, we hold trauma in the body," and that's necessarily true. Where in the body, we don't know, but it creates dis-ease. And after the military, I did 7 years in the U.S. Army in the infantry, and before that was crazy. It was really fun as a teenager and child, but we'll get to this first. Um, you have to recalibrate your whole mindset to be selfless in your service towards your teammates. You put yourself first. You put your own self at risk before you risk the team. It creates a very deep brotherhood because we know that in any minute, you know, we're gonna have to give our lives for the greater good for the team, and that pushes your will in a certain way. Um, the physical rigors are hard, you know, and you learn very early on. It's 90% mental and 10% physical. So there is some of that component, but it's almost like everything is turned on its head. And then when you see people that you've grown to love and be as close to, or sometimes closer than your own family, and those people are tragically killed, and you're there and there's no way to decompress that. There's no way really to walk through there to deal with it. Um, and then you see the what we're capable of as human beings, you know. There's so many layers to that pain. And I think necessarily it's been on my mind for a long time is like, what is the suicide epidemic about with people who served in combat? It's that they can't psychically, emotionally deal with that. And it comes up in nightmares. It comes up in the way the whole body is conditioned. They talk about the hypopituitary adrenal axis, and that maybe explains some of the biological component. But if it were simply a biological issue, then it could be treated with medication. And those medications, for the large majority of people, they do help a little bit. I mean, but they also can create, they don't create the gateway for the psychic healing to happen. Um, there are modalities like cognitive processing therapy. There's people who've used emotional freedom technique or EMDR or a combination of these things. But it really comes down to release. How do we release? How do we take agency and ownership over our trauma? And that's a human question across all countries and all nations and all walks of life. And what I began to see after I got out of the military, still suffering myself, was that I was 10 years an advocate. I worked in Philadelphia, I worked in Washington, D.C. The group that I worked with in D.C., amazing organization, they started to figure it out. It was holistic. It was holistic work. It was equine therapy. They had us doing yoga nidra. We didn't even know what it was, you know, like, why am I plugging my nose and breathing? But at the same time, man, it created a shift. Didn't understand what it did at the time, but all those incremental things created shifts. And before I ever joined the military, when I was a teenager, I had a lot of experiences when I was a kid that, of course, you don't talk to people about because they think you're crazy or you just have a wild imagination. But I began meditating at 15 or 16, and that shifted a lot of my anger from my childhood. My dad died when I was 6. I had a dream about that. Never went to church in my life, but I dreamed that he was ascending up a ladder. I was over the body. I was looking down at my little self. I was looking down at the only person I was close to besides that we were watching. He says, "Look, it's going to be okay." But for all of my life, not having a father, I was angry about it, and I didn't have a mom. My mom was out of the picture until I was about 15 or 16. I was angry about that too, you know. So when I began meditating as a teenager, I began to release a lot of that anger that caused me to get in trouble. Not enough trouble where I couldn't join the military, but I mean, honestly, that was probably also a type of intervention, because by all rights and means, I should have been in more trouble than I was. I mean, I got out like, I didn't have any record of doing anything wrong by the time I joined the military at 19. So the military was kind of a stopping point for all of that. The military was recalibrating into a sense of brotherhood. I gained brothers. I didn't never had siblings. I gained a sense of family. I didn't have that growing up. I gained a sense of selflessness. I didn't have that growing up. So that served its own purpose. And then getting out and spending 10 years as an advocate, I thought, well, if I just do enough good for other people, it's going to heal that pain. And I loved helping people in that way, but that's not what did it. Went through a lot of issues with medications, went through a lot of issues with having suicidal thoughts and really decompensating, not knowing how to be a father or a husband. And there was a point at which I'd probably taken enough pills. I took like 200 pills, and several years ago, and I just went to sleep. I'm like, I'm good. I'm done. I'm tired of being here. I want to go home. And I looked at my Fitbit, and I was watching my heart rate drop and drop and drop. It got to be around maybe 40, 45. And I guess I passed out. I guess, whatever the case may be, and this is interesting, but I felt a presence beside me. It was like a beautiful blue light. And I guess we could maybe say it was Archangel Michael, right? And I was lifted up above the earth. And he says, "Do you see all these portals of pain? Those are all the people that are going to be hurting from you, from you leaving now." And I looked down, and he's like, "Well, and you may have to come back and do this all over again. So, okay. I was mad. I was like, well, what do you want me to do? Right? I was just that exasperated. I was ready to just slide on out the door. And I didn't get an answer. I got a picture of me meditating as a teenager. Like I'd forgotten all about that. Trauma does a lot to blot out the picture, you know, the good things in life, the other experiences that built up to this. And so I was like, oh, and I just got the sense start there. So I did. And doing a lot of shadow work, doing a lot of connecting. It was painful. It was emotional. It was, I don't think I left my house. I barely ate for like a month. But at the other end of that, in a sense, I got, because I started learning about this when I was a teenager, but didn't know what it was. It moved me into the idea of Reiki. Now we were given or provided the opportunity to have Reiki treatments, at points in time when I was going through the traditional medical model slash holistic process. But I never thought that was something I would learn, right?
This, while you were in the military, you had the option to take Reiki sessions?
That was after we got out. That was when we went to
Okay.
UCLA. Yeah. UCLA had a great program. They had great doctors, but they also had Qigong practitioners.
Wow.
They had equine therapy people there. They had Reiki people there. And they were like, yeah, mindfulness is how you do this. And at the time, now remember, I'm a meditator as a teenager. I looked at them and says, why do you want me to feel my feet on the floor? Why should I follow my breath? And they said, well, there's science. And this is how a lot of us thought, like, okay, well, if there's science, then maybe I'll give it a try. But the problem with that was that there wasn't a container to hold the pain and the lack of anger that was that driving force behind how you dealt with all those things. It's easier to be angry than to be sad. It's easier to be angry than to be hurt. And so moving forward, I began meditating. It was like really like moving a lot of this pain out of the body, but it was so freaking hard. I took my first Reiki class a couple years ago. And what I found through the method that I was taught, it's a Western method of Reiki. And what I found though was interesting. It was like there was a container for this energetic shift to occur. It was like being held. So not only are you processing your own prana, your own chi, your own block and stock and stuck type of energies that are sitting in the body, but you're also having a container to hold you that doesn't feel like you just want to spin out of control. That was mind blowing to me. And then that sense of love that came through, the sense of deep and unconditional love that was just present. And so there were things that I had always felt like were off in the world, and learning about, we talked about Jim McCarty and LO research. And I started reading that probably before I even started doing Reiki. Just something came, I was like, oh, this all clicks. This feels like home, right? So there was many things that led up to it, but it was like, well, if this worked for me, I want to help other people in the same way. So I went and I spent a long time, about over a year and a half, going through the process of becoming getting the master certification in the Western style of Reiki, and then Karuna, which is an advanced course, past master. But then I says, you know what? I want to really understand the Japanese perspective. So I studied again. And then what I found is a beautiful marriage between the two. And I talked to you about breaking down the components of Reiki to make it more accessible to people. that it is mindfulness, that it is meditation, that it is breath work, that it is somatic, experiencing. It's moving the awareness to the body. And there are some people that will look at, practices like Reiki. They say, well, it's always been a hands-on healing thing, and we don't believe in all that, or that goes against my belief system. But first, before anything else, and this is fundamentally important, it is a self-practice. Because before you can truly help and hold space, an elevated space for other people to resonate with, we have to be able to do that for ourselves. And we have to do it in an egoless way, where we're not attached to a result. We're not attached, because what necessarily may click in my own consciousness, in my own way and being, and how I may find significance in something is going to be different, infinitely different from everyone else. And so when you try to control an outcome, that is counter to the intent of allowing the natural flow of things to fall into place. As you move into that egoless state through practice, you begin to remember it. It's like muscle memory. It's like throwing a baseball. And that creates an accessibility to that non-dual state of being. There's studies that shown 2,500 hours of meditation before you get to the point to where you can really embrace and understand a non-dual consciousness. But our suffering comes from duality, from us versus them, because we have to be identified with a country, we have to be identified with a team, we have to be identified with a political party, we have to be identified with the belief system. So those beliefs, as opposed to experiences, those beliefs cause pain, cause division, cause othering. But when you begin to look at people and see people not as a different hairstyle or a different face or a different color or a different country, you see them as beings just like you, you're reflections of each other, then that unity transcends not only person to person, but then you begin to look at the world differently, animals differently, our place in the world, our relationship with the earth, our relationship with the cosmos. But these things you can't give somebody in a book and say, here, read this, you'll get it. It has to be felt. And that is what is beautiful, is that I believe that the practice of Reiki, because it is an integrated practice of many modalities that already have studies, but not just that, that just points to a signpost saying that these things have some legitimacy. But the practice of this creates that container that we can't put our hands on, really can't put our finger on exactly what it is, that shifts the consciousness, that shifts our way of being. And I think in the next 200 or 300 years, these sort of practices, we can call it Reiki because it came from Japan. We can call it, if it came from a different society, we call it something different. A different culture, we call it something different, but it's universal. And I think it's an innate birthright of the human being to elevate and ascend to these higher states of awareness that collectively, we create a new shift in our societies. We create a new shift in our way, in our being. And what it looks like after that, we don't know. But, I think it's more beautiful than not. And that's just scratching the surface. But that was, I've talked a little bit too long yet, so I'll be quiet. But what do you think? I mean, how do you feel?
That was beautiful, Timothy. First of all, yeah, don't even worry. You just go when everything you're saying feels like so inspired, and like it's such a beautiful message that people need to hear, to be reminded of how to call it, the human potential, and also to be reminded of why we're here, what we can offer others, and offer our own selves, all this release and all this healing from trauma that all of us have had. Your story is very very touching, very compelling, um, and I really liked, in particular, when talking about Reiki, I really like this. You gave me a new perspective of looking at it, um, of of not just this hands-on healing, but so okay, we've spoken a little bit about the fact that I recently did what do you call it? I just got initiated in Reiki, um, and actually I was initiated a few years back, but I wanted to like restart or reignite my connection, so I did the first level again, and even though intuitively and experientially I see everything that you said, I had never given it the thought and put the concepts together of how much of an integrative practice it is. And you're totally right. And that when you just express that, that opened something for me, you know, and I can totally see why Reiki in particular, or perhaps other kinds of techniques that make use of perhaps the meditative state, how these things could definitely help people heal trauma, you know, in that sense of okay, when there's trauma, some of the things we tend to do is get outside of the body. What's this called? It's not disembodied, it's
Disassociation.
yeah, thank you. We tend to get dissociated from the body. We and we don't notice, we lose presence, we lose time, we lose memories, and and like you said, you know, Reiki combining mindfulness, breath work, body awareness, even the even getting more in touch with our own presence and our own uh, self selfless, or you know, this non-dual awareness, which are concepts that are so hard to just, like you said, lay it on and just read it on the book and okay, now you know it. No, you actually sit down and you practice all these things for many years sometimes. And yeah, I don't know, I think I'm kind of rambling right now, but it was very beautiful to see, to hear you express the combinatory nature of Reiki, and how those different, like those, that set of abilities, let's say, that are implicitly part of Reiki, but maybe are not the main aspect that we know of Reiki, but those abilities are what allow a Reiki practitioner to actually assist on somebody else's healing, but also they are, like you said, a container that allows your own healing. And I love from Reiki that it's not a thing that like like a truck that hits you and boom, you're healed, but it's actually a very slow or very soft process, I would say. Not necessarily slow, but a very loving process. And it takes time, but it holds you, and it takes you by the hand. And uh, the, the fact that then you get to share this with others through your own hands and through your own um,
Your own being. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, through your own being and through your own being with another one, that's also great. But it's not just because sometimes people with spirituality, you know, there's this kind of like shopping center kind of spirituality where okay, I'm gonna get this tool and this tool and this tool, but they actually require a cultivation and a practice that then allows you to be an even better practitioner and an even better assistant to somebody else who's in need of healing. But people sometimes get very mental or very materialistic with these tools. And yeah, again, you gave me this understanding, you know, of yeah, it's actually your when you're actually I don't know how you say it in English, but like passing Reiki to somebody else, you're
Yes,
actually doing it better, or it's actually more effective because of the practice that you do on yourself outside
that's right.
of that room and during your own personal time.
One of my Japanese teacher, like I said, I learned it in the Western method first, and you know what? I loved it, and you know what? I still teach a lot, I still teach the majority of that, but I bring in the Eastern philosophies of practice of not externalizing, in the second degree, don't externalize the symbols. They're meant first for oneself, beginning to understand that you are your radiant bright light. You are this, and all things fall into a natural state of equilibrium and balance, and there is no sending or receiving, there's interbeingness. Thich Nhat Hanh talked a lot about interbeingness, that when we walk into a room, and this is because I explain it in this way to people because I feel like Reiki has not been demystified yet. And people don't understand it, but they love yoga. But then also people think, well, yoga is just stretching, just doing different poses. There's more to it than that. But if you can get someone in the door to do a physical activity, if you can get someone in the door to say, okay, this is mindfulness, here's the science. This is meditation, here's the science of non-dual awareness. Here's how it changes the neural brain correlates. Here's how breathwork helps the polyvagal system. Here's how somatic embodied awareness helps you become more in touch with what's below your neck. Then they're going to start feeling sensations in the body, what we call energy. And they're going to feel them maybe in different points. And somebody may have said, I think I'm having a headache. And when something's happening right here and you can feel it, and it happens a lot, right? Or something's happening here, or something's happening here. That's when you're able to open the door to normalize those sensations, normalize what that sensation is, allow it to be, but then normalize that you're not crazy for feeling this. I have sessions with clients and even other wellness practitioners who I respect and deeply love them. And I don't set an intention. I just hold non-dual space. What happens within the awareness, within the senses beyond the five that we typically know we have, they've been discussed in different ways. But what happens in that space is deeply personal to each person. And so expounding my perception or my truth, as opposed to creating a guideline or framework to understand what that means, there's a huge difference. Because my truth and my sensations and my awareness of things may be different from yours. And then when we begin to go too far down the rabbit hole, what can happen is someone says, well, I'm not seeing colors, or I'm not sensing this. These things happen naturally through practice. Whatever your awareness, your particular personality, your way of understanding is most attenuated to the personality, it's going to begin to work with you like that. I don't know if I told you this, but I took Reiki 1 and 2 twice. Then I took master class, and I took the Karuna class. Then I took the Japanese Shinpin class. And in between all that, I think I had to begin to learn to trust things that have always been occurring in my life, things that we used to call coincidences that are now synchronous events. You can live within that flow state. That's how we met, Rafa, living within that flow state. And that flow state is simply trusting the higher order of things. Whatever you want to call that, you can call that whatever your religious upbringing is, but it is literally living in that flow and trusting that flow. And we have a beautiful way of using our rational minds, a beautiful way of using those tools to create. But when we marry and create balance between the rational and the intuitive mind, we become something completely different, from fearful, from angry, from justifying. And then we begin to see the undercurrent of why things are the way they are, without judgment, with more compassion. And what holds space for healing is simply that: it's love, it's compassion. It's not love that we can manufacture. You can read about that in the raw material. It's not stuff that we can manufacture. It's something that we have to allow to flow through us. When we walk within that space of service to others, but simultaneously taking care of the self, that's another balance. We have a balance between, in many different facets and directions. And when we do that, we see each other not as this or not as that, but simply as beings having this human experience, being completely limited in so many ways, but that's the beauty of it. It refines something within the self. You know, you can have a great life and have no problems and you'll be okay. But when you struggle to do that hike and you've gone 12 miles and your feet are killing you and you get to the top, what does that feel like? Something completely different from sitting beside the pool. That's why we move into this space, to have those limitations and then to rediscover who we really are. And that everybody is uniquely beautiful in what they bring to the table. Even the people that we might not like their actions, like that what you did really sucked. But what does it teach? What does suffering teach? It teaches compassion. And the other thing suffering teaches is us to close down reflexively. And then we have to peel back the layers of the lampshade so that innate brightness can come forward. That's what I love about Reiki as a practice. Because it's not just, if we look at it from an energetic standpoint, it's not just one's chi and one's prana, self-cultivated. It is allowing a higher level of that consciousness to become aware and broaden. And so you can move a little bit more quickly along the, as you're ready, but you can move more quickly along that path of expansion of consciousness, expansion of expression in music. I've had some clients that, like, they take in class and they're like, I'm drawing. I never used to draw. Oh, I'm drawing with the hand that got nerve injury, as a matter of fact. And I'm not even trying to draw. It's just happening. It's like, well, that's your creative expression moving forward. I don't know how to make videos, but somehow when I feel this sense to make a video, it comes together. Even in my writing, it's the same way. It's not that I'm doing something because I'm so smart. I'm doing it because it's flowing through me, because I'm allowing that to happen. And I think that is the beauty. When we look at people, Rafa, we see the basketball players, we see the football players, we see the artists, and we're like, how do they even do it? They're so lucky. They're just living their authentic experience. Some of that's great, and some of it's painful. There's always sacrifice. We only see the good, right? So it's not meant to be easy here. It's meant to be hard. It was meant for me to have a childhood bankrupt of any real love or compassion, just to learn that love and compassion and brotherhood in a different way. And then just to see, what real suffering looks like in the world. Just to be able to realize that good work doesn't do it by itself. It takes self-work. Just to see that, everything that I picked up along the way, all the paranormal, weird, strange things that happened, meant that there's a higher order of things, and that there's a framework that we don't necessarily have the access to understand those higher order of things, just by virtue of that we're here and not there, but that what we do matters, and that there doesn't have to be war, there doesn't have to be fighting. There can be unity, but in order for that unity to take place, there has to be an appreciation, understanding of separation.
Yeah, for sure. That paradox, right? Of, in order for there to be unity, there must be separateness or distinction. But from what perspective, right? It's like there must be separation, but not hate between the different parts of this separation, but actually an acceptance, an open-hearted separation, let's say, an open-hearted awareness and understanding that the separation is not a glitch in the matrix or an error. It's actually the only way. When we think about the idea of God or the universe or something beyond our small selves, beyond time and space, it necessarily requires paradox to exist, because it's just very simple. Okay, so let's call it God. Okay, God is infinite. Okay, then it must be yes and no at the same time, or else it's not infinite. And it must be one, but also many. And in such a way that it seems that it shouldn't, but it seems that that it must. I don't know. Like it needs to present all this theater of human existence or of individual existence in order for it to be infinite. It needs our our suffering, our trauma, our sense of longing for God, our sense of separation from source. It's, I mean, we wouldn't wish it on anybody on one perspective, let's say, but at the same time, when you start beginning to recognize the necessity and the inevitability of those things in order for the love, I just don't have words, for I'm trying to get somewhere, but I understand that just me trying to get there already the idea has has been transmitted without the need of finishing a sentence or anything.
Man, no, it did. It's like what I see is the creator, if the creator of all that is, right? The divine mystery selflessly separates itself into an infinite amount of small parts of itself to re-experience itself. But the longing that we feel to be reunified is the same longing it feels for us to make our way home. That's the energy of love.
And you know what? You even make me think it's also the same longing that it feels to separate in the first place. It's like I need to know myself. I need to experience myself from all the possible perspectives. I have such a longing for this, such an I can't. Wow, it's like God. I can imagine like before the initial separation. I mean, it makes no sense to say it because it didn't exist, let's say, but if we could kind of like make a story about it, I can totally feel like what God was feeling at the moment before separation. It was like, oh my God, I haven't created Rafa and Timothy and had this conversation yet. I need to do this in order to feel like I am, and
Yeah,
sometimes we're like, oh my God, why God have you forsaken me? And it's like I'm getting this sense that God, quote unquote, forsook, or whatever the word is, forsake us out of love, out of having the opportunity to make that journey back home, like you was just saying.
that's right, man. Man, that just, and that's why when we go into practice and we get quiet, so the ego, right? It's not bad. You don't have to kill it, squash it. It's wounded. We come into this world as beautiful little kids, just full of joy. And then we get our feelings hurt, or we don't have enough attention paid to us, or tragic things happen, or, and it just goes on and on and on. The lived experience is as infinite as, the amount of people who have walked the earth, and then through war and through strife and through suffering and through disease. Um, we create layers upon layers of the concealment. And sometimes we get to have an opportunity in life. Some people have exceptional human experiences where the veil's lifted back a little bit. Doing the practice allows that to be a present state of being. More often than not, then you walk into, it's like we say in meditation, what we do on the mat, what we do on the cushion, is not simply for the cushion, not for ourselves, it's how we come back out into the world. A lot of people talk about, we're, moving into a higher density. Yes, I see that as being the case. I feel it as being the case, but I think it's not like we're waiting for a train to pull up. It's our work. It's what we have to do, and we don't do it by telling people they're wrong. We're telling people they shouldn't feel how they feel, or they shouldn't be angry at someone who cut them off. We do it by loving them, saying, where you're at's okay. And then what happens with people? They get curious. Well, what about you, man? And you're like, well, It's an invitation. It's not infringing on free will. You explain. My wife has done it to me all of our married life. She starts something. I'm initially like, no, I'm not doing that. 3 months later, I come back around. Hey, what was that? I mean, we have this sometimes initial pushback against something we don't know. And that's okay. That's actually a safety mechanism. But then when you see how other people resonate, sometimes we get around to coming around to saying, okay, well, how'd that work for you? And that begins that curious journey into something different. So yeah, man, I was feeling everything you said. I was like, yeah, that feels a lot like what this is. You know, the journey home for a lot of people, you can't see 3 feet in front of you. You can't see what's going to happen in the next hour,
Yeah.
but you can begin to trust that you listen to those small hints, that intuition, that light that comes over you, and allow yourself, even if it doesn't make sense, follow it and see what happens. And you usually become pleasantly surprised. And we all want things. And I was talking about manifestation with somebody the other day. I said, I love the idea of manifestation. I think that manifestation for material things that we think are going to make us happy, maybe that can create more suffering. Maybe we just need what we need. And maybe the manifestation that we do experience in life over time is something far greater than what we originally had thought, and within the limitations of our mind. And so I don't know where this came from. I probably came from Thich Nhat Hanh. I love that. I love him. He died exactly at midnight on the 23rd or 24th of January. It was right after my birthday. And I was like, I love this guy. He had taught me so much. He's Vietnamese. Yeah. He lived through that war. He held retreats for guys to come back to reintegrate and come home to themselves, who were in combat, who killed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese people, because he knew that suffering stifles the soul and spirit, and that love is what creates the bridge. And I think in one of his books, he said, peace is every step. He says, especially for veterans who've been in war, they're the tip of the flame to illuminate what that really means, what that looks like. There's no glory in it. There's no good anything that comes of it. And that he provided such selfless service to the world in his unique way. I mean, wow. So, I don't know where I was going with that. I just kind of.
Let me interject just a couple of things. I think you were going with that. You were talking about manifestation with somebody the other day, but also you mentioned this idea of higher densities and the ascension and moving to uncharted territory, let's say, in human consciousness. And yeah, we have this kind of, or sometimes people can have this idea of like moving to somewhere else, or like this journey of higher density is a kind of movement out, but it's actually something that's actually going inside. It's not going somewhere, it's bringing something over here.
That's
more
right.
more likely. And then manifestation, I totally agree how there's this craze today of manifestation. You can actually you hear this on, what's the name of this show, one of those guilty pleasures, every now and then, the housewives, what's the name, the Real Housewives of whatever. I remember in one of the episodes, one of them started talking about yoga and meditation and manifestation, and that gave me a big clue of how widespread it's become. But then again, like you were kind of alluding to, there is this pitfall in the idea of manifestation, of never having enough, with where you're at, and never enjoying the journey towards the manifestation, because again, you wanna manifest a new car or whatever. Then you get the car, let's say, and it's just like going to the shopping center and buying something. 10 minutes later, that thrill, that excitement, it's gone, and you needed something else to feel whole. And the whole you're trying to feel with when attempting to manifest things, in my opinion, or at least it's probably my own whole that I'm trying to 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 feel with manifestations, is that whole, that part of ourselves which feels hard emotions, or difficult emotions, and we want to feel something different. We want to feel expansive, we want to feel joy, we want to feel bliss, connection, we want to feel a sense of purpose, we want to feel love. And all those things that we, and objects that we're trying to manifest, or lifestyles that we're trying to manifest, all those things are actually kind of, I think the word is like proxies for the real thing we want, which is the feeling we believe that thing will give us. And just a final point in this is that it's also not just the feeling that we believe we will get at the end of the process, but it's actually the feeling that, sort of the feeling that chasing the thing gives us during the whole process, as well as after we get the thing. And not being frustrated when, okay, now I got the thing, and the feeling is not there, so I need to chase after something else. No, learn to cultivate that feeling from within, and to, also to enjoy the ride. It's like the whole purpose, I guess, of the thing is to feel that feeling you're trying to manifest all the time. So, okay, let's do that.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's not good to be comfortable, you know, or have what you need. But yeah, we're chasing and chasing and chasing, and there's something in here. It's real, and I've done this a few times. It's self practice. I says, man, I really want that thing, you know, and then it's like, okay, I get curious. Where is that coming from? And just breathe, and I get curious, and I begin to observe, and it's really insistent sometimes. Just put my hands on, and I just sit here with myself for a few minutes and like, do I really need that? Do I really need that? And I just shut up and I get quiet. And after about 5 minutes, I'm like, no, I don't need that. You know, we have to attend to ourselves and have to understand that it's natural, for, you know, it's probably just somewhere a part of our nature, part of our genetics, that, you see somebody who has a bike and you're like, oh, it'd be nice to have a bike, you know, but, it'd be nice to have I don't know, a boat, or it'd be nice to have these things, you know. But really, yeah, we're chasing a thrill. We're chasing a dopamine rush, is what they call it neurochemically, right? But it's deeper than that. We're chasing the idea that we're not enough. So give yourself the permission to be enough exactly where you're at in each moment. If you can do that, give yourself that grace, you know, and it is a journey. It is not about a destination. There's never going to be a destination. There's no endpoint to healing. There's no endpoint to how we can expand our awareness. It's no endpoint into how much we can facilitate and help others and help ourselves. That's going to grow exponentially through the evolution of consciousness, with or without the human experience. But our limiting factor is that we feel so much like we're not enough in any given moment. Somebody buys a bigger house than this next guy. Oh, well, I just must suck. You can't take, can't send your kid on a $10,000 trip over to Europe. because everywhere else in the world, except for the US, you can usually get on a plane for cheap. But in the US, they get like $3 grand to go across the ocean. All I'm saying is that you can feel bad, or you can say everything I've done out of love is enough. Everything I've done for myself is enough. At the end of the day, people don't remember what you give them. What thing you bought from the jewelry store. I mean, maybe for wives it matters with diamonds sometimes, but honestly, she cares more about how you make her feel. Your friends care more about how you show up and are present for them. Even the people you work with, and I've worked with people like this, brilliant, brilliant people, like sterling degree smart, but interpersonally, caring about other people, caring about what they do, not so much. And in the corporate world, they call that toxic intelligence. Like, it's toxic to be that smart, but don't care about the mission, don't care about the people you work with, make everything so hard on everybody. And, I'm not going to postulate why that might be, because there's a million reasons that might be for a million different people. But I was asked many years ago by my national director when I was in DC. He says, "What makes a good advocate? What makes a good person for us to pick up?" I says, "Well, you got people over here with law degrees. You got somebody over here you may have to train for 2 or 3 years to do some equivalent type, maybe not quite the same amount of level of work, but they're going to work hard." I says, "You can teach anyone anything, but you can't teach them to care. And if they don't care, they don't have a passion for what we do, then they're going to fall off." He said, "Oh, you're right." I said, Mark, you're going to hire some attorneys, and so in about 1 or 2 years, once they get their sea legs underneath them, they understand what they're doing, they're going to leave." And he's like, "Okay." And that's exactly what happened. And it's so necessarily, if somebody loves being a welder, somebody loves working in the trades, somebody loves doing different things, they have a passion for that, they're going to excel because it's coming from deeper within. It's that flow state you get into. And when somebody hates something they do, even though they're perfectly capable of doing it, they're going to cut corners, make mistakes, not be attentive, make everyone else miserable. And so I think that part of the shift for us as a society is helping people grow into what it is they're naturally attenuated to do, and give them the option to explore, and create I'm not an economist, but create a model for that to be the case. There's enough room for people to thrive, and you're going to get better things from people when they thrive. Like in Europe, everybody was a team when I was in Germany. Like, those engineers are so smart. Nobody's getting an award and everyone else is, "Hey, good job, boss. We did all the work." Everybody is celebrated. Everybody moves and is educated to the attenuation of their natural inclinations and abilities. And if they don't like something after a while, they can shift into something else. So it has a lot of different layers, but it starts with us realizing that we have to shift not just our consciousnesses, but slowly, maybe our kids, maybe our grandkids, maybe their kids, shifting the way we view our interactions within the world.
Yeah, everything you're sharing is very beautiful. I sense, and you mentioned your birthday is around the end of January, so I was like, is he an Aquarius? You're an Aquarius, right?
Yeah, I'm an Aquarius.
Yeah, so am I. I'm from February 10th. We're close.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Guys, we're a weird breed,
Yeah. We're
but
weird.
I like I mean, just the way the Aquarians see things, and kind of go with the flow, but don't really conform to any one thing. I
Yeah.
like the charts. Charts are, some of the charts are really interesting. Um, David Gahn had he he does some work that I thought was really neat too. Kind of decoding a lot of different layers of that. But yeah, general astrology is interesting, the way it really defines out your propensity. So there again, you know, how do you figure out somebody's birth month, right? How do you figure out the time
Mm.
of day that they were born and their situation? And then all of those things begin to align like an archetypical model of a construct for the personality.
Yeah.
And we say by the stars were, and if you think stars are just like, you know, balls of gas in the universe somewhere, well, that doesn't make any sense. But if you begin to think beyond those influences, maybe it makes more sense. I'm not going to say what sense that should make,
Mhm.
but I just find it interesting.
Yeah, and it's again one of these subtle subtle modalities and practices which sometimes people try to look from a materialistic point of view, which, like you say, kind of doesn't make sense. But at the same time, it does make sense even like that. I like when I started understanding a little bit more about astrology, I was like, okay, so then I can sense that, for example, if Mars or Venus or whatever planet was at a particular point when I was born, that means that if you could draw like a line from myself, from my body to the center of that planet, let's say, okay, that particular line combined with the other lines to all the other planets and etc. to infinity, that is also me. That is how uh, the again, it's very hard to put into words, but I kind of imagined all those things like a kind of gravity or a kind of pull and push and pull that work not on the material plane but on the mental plane and the emotional plane. um, and so you will be more interested instead of saying that, which also could be, but if you have a particular chart, uh, you could physically have a certain aspect, or your physical appearance might be affected by that, but more so your inner world. You'll have certain interests, you'll be not so interested in other things. And you were speaking about your advocacy right now, and what you understood is you have to care about the 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 topic or the thing that you're advocating for. uh, and at that moment I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure this guy's an Aquarius, because I didn't know exactly which date it starts and it finishes, but I was like, no, he has to be Aquarius because he's talking about helping others and the community and changing the world and bringing something new. And what's more beautiful is when we start to bring all these ideas from an open perspective, and not from a kind of dictatorial perspective that perhaps sometimes when there's still uh, a relatively large amount of trauma still in the body, we might be like, no, they're doing everything wrong, and the elites are doing this, and the letter agencies are doing that, and this country and this president and this neighbor and this friend and this enemy, and we create all this complication and confusion that's so unnecessary to solve the that yearning to help, that we Aquarians have, um, which comes really from the heart, and again, that's why it's so important, everything we've been talking here, everything you've shared, which is amazing. I love the way that you approach all this subject. um, that's why it's so important to heal the trauma that's in ourselves first. We need to become the best version of ourselves if we expect the world to become better, because how can you help others, or what degree of help can you impart or share in the world if you haven't healed yourself first enough? It's going to be like a kind of like a ceiling of how much of a positive effect you can have in the world.
Yeah, well, because necessarily we're human beings. We burn out, we get exhausted, we get tired, we have to sleep, and all of these things, right? But yeah, there is a limit. When you begin to heal the self, when you begin to heal the, whether you want to say it's energy centers in the body, whether you want to balance those, but they're always dynamic, they're fluid, they're moving all the time. You go to the grocery store and somebody cuts you off with their cart and they take the last thing that you were going to get. That's an opportunity. That's a catalyst to, how do I show up in the moment? Then when you choose 5 minutes later to check out with what you do have and you're nice to the cashier, that's a catalyst in the moment. So, I told my son a long time ago, because I wasn't always this way. I had a lot of pain to work through. I says, Thomas, you can only work within the limits of your own understanding and of your own threshold to deal with pain. And so when you're piling pain upon pain upon pain upon pain upon pain upon somebody, no wonder they don't have any empathy or compassion. Because first it begins with the self. Then we can begin to move out from there and have greater and greater levels of ease and less duality in our thinking. And just as kind as you have to be with other people, then you begin to learn that that's important for the self. I've got neck injuries, I've got back injuries, I've got knees, shoulders, ankles, all these things from carrying all that crap and stuff in the military. I'm 45. So have to be kind with the body, have to be mindful. You can get out there and go after it, but then you have to have the recovery period. It's not just a biological machine you can beat the crap out of. And a lot of us think like that. So yes, we have limits physically, mentally, emotionally. I think what happens when we get out of our own way is that we're able to exude something that is us. Like Asui said, your body is in the universe and the universe is in the body. He said that. That was why I began to look at this like, hey, this is a self practice. This is about bringing oneself into a sense of oneness first, then helping others. Certainly you can help others without doing that work, but the quality and the quantity of the transmission, that resonance, we can, there was a study that was done where they actually found, this is probably maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that the hands of practitioners and the third eye or the brow, this area of the practitioners, emits weak light photons. A photon is smaller than an atom. If this is only one element of what we call Reiki, of what we call the bioenergetic space, and then if we start to understand that photons over here and photons over there, through entanglement, are affected by each other, then so is consciousness. So is how we send things. We're connecting with things, when we do these practices. When we talk on the phone, we're not distracted multitasking. We're doing the same thing. Every time we can be fully present, because the practice of Reiki is just a foundation to open the way to beginning to understand a greater portion of yourself. It's nothing that you're given. It's something that you remember. And so I know I just kind of went all over the place. I do that sometimes. I guess what I'm saying is that, we have to learn that there's responsibility for our thoughts, responsibility for our emotions, responsibility for not just our actions stemming from those, but from looking at what those do for us and others, in the world around us. And when, as we practice to remove those layers of pain and trauma, we feel less justification to think in a certain way or feel in a certain way, and that healing creates a butterfly effect. When you are kind to the person at the grocery, when you are kind to the male person, when you're kind to the person who just had an episode in the middle of public and, everybody but them knows that they just get themselves look stupid because they're upset, because they don't have any more threshold, but you send that compassion. That creates a mandala effect. And if enough people are doing that, it creates critical mass as we shift again into a higher density. It's not a train pulling up. It's a way of being that becomes unfolded. and that moves along with the higher order of things, with the way the earth is moving, with the way it's working within, like A-stat astrology, within the auspices of the planets, the solar system, the larger universe. So yeah, I mean, I guess I've got a weird way of thinking about it, like trying to understand what we understand about the quantum stuff, to say they're beginning to look at it, but they still don't get it. They still don't understand that you can see the interconnectedness through dark matter in the universe, but you don't know what it is. But maybe you don't have to know. Maybe it's just enough to see that it's interconnected. It's a web work, and that you can't use it to. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
No, it's not a knowing. They are like trying to they're interpreting quantum physics from a materialistic perspective without realizing that uh, quantum physics itself has taught them that it is not a material aspect of reality. I mean, they know this, but the many scientists keep committing certain fallacies without realizing that they are not applying the scientific method to some of the more cutting edge stuff that they're investigating. But eventually, I know they will. And like you said, in part with going on with something that you started saying, it's not something that they can know. It's something that they can feel. It's something that they can be and they can experience. For me, my own path into spirituality was through quantum physics. When I was studying in high school, at a certain moment, I had this. It's not. I don't want to call it a revelation, but I had this understanding that, wow, this is what religions had been talking about, and I didn't know anything about religion, but I don't know, for some reason, I don't remember the exact moment, but we were studying these effects like entanglement and these quantum effects, and I got this kind of vision of kind of like, this is like what Jesus said, or those guys. It's like, and we are getting closer and closer, and I think it's the perfect analogies and metaphors and the perfect kind of language to speak about all of this today. When as we've been speaking, science is something that people have faith in without even knowing it. It's like when at the start you were saying that they told you something about the science behind, I think it was behind the different modalities that they were sharing at UCLA, the Reiki and the mindfulness, and they told you there's science, and you were like, oh, okay, if there's science, so it's like it's a faith that we don't know we have this faith. We don't call it a faith because we think it's faith is subjective and this is objective in some way, but it's still subjective because it's like, oh, there's science, so I choose to trust that the science is correct, or that they did the experiments and that they wrote the papers correctly and that everything is all right. It's now it's me that's rambling. But also one more thing I wanted to say is that it's very important for us Aquarians to know that we are safe to speak freely, and you don't need to worry about like rambling or going all over the place or whatever. It's just we speak this way because we have this very quick mind, and many times for me, I kind of finish saying something, and not an instant passes that I'm like, no, that's not what I was trying to say. It's like so much more nuanced that I was able to express it. But it's also a work, an inner work of accepting. Okay, this is the limits of my communication today, and it's all right. I know that, like something that happened just some minutes ago. It's like, okay, maybe I didn't get it through in words, but something else about the communication does go through exactly the resonance or whatever, and the message got there, and we don't need to get like obsessive about the words and using the exact words, even though it's a nice practice because uh, because I don't know, it's just fun to put into words things that cannot be.
Yeah, yeah, it's coming through the consciousness. You want to express an idea or communicate it in a way, and it does get frustrating. But that again, like you said, that's acceptance. Hey, look, it's okay, because I understood what you were saying. I could see and feel, and I got 110% about what you were coming, what was coming across, and it's actually really interesting because that's how I'm leaning to understand. We call spirituality, spirit things we don't understand where the consciousness is situated within the body. We thought it was the brain, but the brain is only the readout on um, functioning tests like magnetic functional MRI. It's telling you a few seconds or maybe after. It's showing up in the brain after the thoughts have occurred. It's only giving you signposts of where the activity is. So it's not in the brain. If we don't understand completely consciousness, it's okay not to understand completely the mechanism of action of how consciousness works, to include how can Reiki work over distance, you know, to include, we don't know why we feel the way we feel sometimes, we just do. So what we're doing is we're kind of deconstructing and unpacking it little by little. And there's a lot of great studies that in the frontiers of neuroscience and like reputable journals, they're beginning to piece together some things. It may be another 50, 100 years, but what I tell people is that I can give you enough to lay the groundwork that this isn't just something made up, pulled
Mhm.
out of the air. What happens after that with your practice, that's your experience. And I think it's really important for us to hold space, to normalize, even if we don't quite, like I've had, when I do treatment sessions for people, I don't tell them what I pick up within my awareness, because a lot of times it's not relevant. What's relevant is how they processed, if they had this upheaval or this aha moment or something that just shifted with them, or they just feel better. You know, how do we know without knowing? That innate knowing comes from this expansion of consciousness, and it's something that we all have the ability to cultivate, and it's going to come out beautifully for each person differently. Um, do we? Is there a huge benefit in holding space to help somebody's natural process unfold? Yes. Can it reduce pain in the body? Yes. Is it always going to happen? Don't know, because what I think needs to be the case for somebody or what they need may be completely different from was, and that's what we talked about. What we think we need versus what shows up can be different. But this is the beauty of all of this, right? It's like it's cutting edge frontier, cutting edge working with people on how to begin to unfold, see things differently for themselves. And once you experience it, nobody can take it away from you,
Mm.
you know? So, man, it's fun. It's an exciting place. It's an exciting time to be here, right? To be having this lived experience. Um, I guess the other thing I say too is that as you move through things, as you begin to heal the self, it's not that they're not going to come back. It's not that something's not going to come up, that there's not more work to be done. You know, for me, I still get nightmares. I still get sometimes loud noises. I still think about the guys who didn't come home. I still think about what happened, but the shift in how the pain's there, the shift in how you approach those things, how you continually polish that diamond matters. If we're a multifaceted diamond and half of it's muddy, it doesn't shine. If the whole thing's muddy, it doesn't shine. You have to continue to polish the diamond to shine bright. And that's the whole point of what we do, why I think this is important, to be able to hold space for people who might not out the gate have a deep and broad understanding. I went to school with people who they've maybe had an exceptional human experience in their life and they just don't know what to make of it. And there have been people who've had a lot and they found communities and it made sense to them. But, if we can reduce this down to something people can get, let them kind of move into a space at their own rate, giving them good groundwork and framework to practice, and then holding space for them to explore what that looks like. Uh, I think that's how we walk together, holding space for the pain, holding space for the setbacks, holding space for the doubt and discouragement. Because it's all there. It's just a part of it. Man, this has been a great conversation, Rafa. I love this.
Yeah, for sure. I had a great time, Timothy, as well. Really, really, really happy to have met you. I feel a kinship already, from just two conversations we've had. This first one on the podcast as well. I think we touched on so much that will be so valuable for so many people. Mm. And as usual, we as Aquarians we went all over the place. We did a kind of bird's eye view of the thing. It will be great to get together again and have another conversation. See what different aspects we didn't get to look into today and explore them even deeper. I don't know. What else can I say? Well, yeah. Let's do this. It's like we generate and especially you have this such beautiful aura. We generated this calm space for each other, and I just want to bask in the sun rays that are emanating from the computer through you. But let's go into the yeah. I mean, I'm remiss. No, what's the word? It's hard for me to let go of this beautiful energy, but I'll keep it in my heart. And let's do the other thing, which is like let's share your social media and all that. And I know you shared this video with me of fighting the war within, this meditation that you recorded, and I'm gonna put the link down in the description for everybody. I wanna take this moment also to thank everybody that's been there, that's watching. You guys got this, okay? Life can get hard, but there's also the chance to see how beautiful it can also be. And there's ups and downs. It's like that for all of us. Some of us might have it a little harder, some might have it a little easier, but from Timothy's experience, having gone from through everything that he's gone through, and it's such a unique example that you can share from your perspective, of going like I think yesterday I said like from, maybe I didn't say it and I thought it, but like from warrior to monk or something like that. It's like from warrior to teacher, to spiritual teacher. And it's just beautiful, that we get to live in this amazing time when we can get together across the distance and across time and space. And yeah, so just let me no tell us where people can find your stuff. I'm sucking at this promotion or whatever part at the end, because it's like I actually need to kind of like install a kind of a new gear, and I there was this part of me not wanting to leave the peace and the stillness that we were sharing before, but at the same time this other part was like, where could that go? It's still here. You can do the this other part, this left brain thing, and still be in the beautiful presence, you know.
Yeah, man. Well, my website is a sourceofwellness.com. And a source of wellness meaning that it's not, I'm not saying it's the only option. I'm saying it's a way forward. Um, I've got a source of wellness channel on YouTube. Now I've just relaunched it because I rebranded a little while ago. So I'm going to be uploading some more stuff. Some things are meditation, some things I'm going to be uploading are just really nice vibe videos to listen to, just to kind of jam to. I have a Medium blog that you can find me at, and I can send you that information. I read articles, and I'm also on Facebook. I kind of suck at social media a little bit, but I try. I just have so many other things going on. But yeah, I've got Facebook. I don't do much with Instagram unless it's promoting like a class or something locally. But I think that for me, sharing ideas, sharing perspectives, giving some food for thought, helping people, also find good, solid, curated information, really digging deeply down into the non-dual approach. If it sounds scary, if it's fear-mongering, don't bother with it. If it creates peace, if it feels resonant, then work with it. See where that takes you. Take your time. And there's no rush, that you're putting one foot in front of the other is always enough. So sourceofwellness.com, a source of wellness on YouTube, and also of SoundCloud. I upload meditations to SoundCloud as well. I've got a nice trauma informed one. With the way we do trauma informed is that I kind of move through the body every 30, 40 seconds, because when you have a lot of trauma, you sit too long, like for 20 minutes sitting in your own re-experiencing, it can get really, really bad. You can have people decompensate. So I create journeys through the body, and that way you've got enough time to rest and then kind of move on. And that was one of the methods that I picked up, because I honestly thought, what do I need to learn about trauma? Well, I already knew what I didn't like about what happened before, like with the way that it was approached in that setting. But this was beautiful because it validated that we do hold trauma in the body. It does cause sickness and illness. It does create things like cancer and gastrointestinal issues and fatigue, and it affects memory. So meditating is really scary for people who think that they've got to sit with themselves. So I'm digressing, going backwards. The meditations I typically do and post up have that trauma informed focus, and those are on SoundCloud, and I do have the one on YouTube. I'll be uploading some more. Has there anything I've left out of covering all that?
On Medium, they can find you via your name, or is it also the
Timothy.Grossman 187? I'm on Medium. Yeah.
Amazing, cool. Yeah, and again, I will share the links down below, but just for people who maybe just by hearing it, they are already quick enough to find it. Yeah, it's cool to share it also on the spoken part. And yeah, no, I think you shared, yeah, you shared more than enough. I think that's a great place for people who are looking to deepen their understanding about trauma and about their own trauma, and perhaps moving a few inches or a few what's a few chess pieces, let's say, around on the board of how they feel and how they've been feeling. That's a great place to go. And yeah, you can find me on, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of like you with Instagram. I'm posting every now and then, but I'm always aware if I get messages through there. I think it's a nice way to get in contact with people. So if anybody wants to reach me, you can send me a message on Instagram. And there's also the Patreon, which you are all more than welcome to join. It would be a great blessing and a great help to support me on this work with the podcast. And I'm also starting to upload some of my songs and some of my meditation music and ambient soundscapes onto YouTube, which I'm very happy for. I've already been uploading music to Bandcamp. I've got a site over there. It's Atman Rafa. I'm sorry, Instagram. It's Atman Rafa as well. It's my Atman plus my name. Um, and But now I'm happy to start sharing more of the music here on YouTube and to put and to start maybe creating guided meditations as well. It's something that I'm feeling called to do, and I don't know, for some reason I'm sometimes resistant, but it's not necessarily that I'm resistant, it's I'm finding the right time, and sometimes my mind wants to do more, but sometimes it's better to do less with more heart than to do more just because of the social media calendar schedules of like, oh, you gotta post every week or every time at the same hour and at the same day or whatever. I'm trying not to be uh, guided by that, but letting my heart guide me, and not just my heart as it feels inside, but also as it feels around me. Sometimes, for example, I live in this beautiful building, but the apartments, they are like one in front of the other, and there's a long patio in between them. So sometimes if a neighbor is making noise, or for example now we have they're fixing what's the name? I start losing the words. They are doing remodeling, two apartments at the same time. So maybe some of the noise came through during the conversation. I hope it wasn't very disturbing. But what I meant to say is that sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this meditation and tonight and whatever, and suddenly all the noises from the remodeling. So that's kind of what I was trying to say, is that sometimes the universe sends messages from the outside as well. Um, and I'll be like, oh, a few weeks or months ago, I was like, oh, hey, I want to do the meditations, and they're not letting me, and oh my God, these neighbors, they are so annoying. But then with time, you do the practices, you work on yourself, and you start, okay, it's just I'm telling myself that I'm not ready, that it's not time yet. But then one day, without even trying, I like touch here and there, and I completed this thing and the song and the video and whatever, and I posted it, and it was just beautiful, and it just flowed, instead of me being like forcing the thing to happen. So yeah, I'm also learning to walk that fine line. It's just beautiful.
It happens when you get attenuated to that sensation, to that feeling that comes over the awareness in the body. It it's like addictive. It's like going to the gym. It's like, well, I want to be in that more often. And so you begin to really notice when you're out of sync, and you let stuff go. Like, oh, well, not today then. Um, it's really, really enjoyable. And then you feel like you're co-creating. You really feel like you're co-creating because you're moving within a rhythm of something that you don't quite fully understand.
Yeah.
But what comes out is usually pretty awesome, right? Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, all right. Again, thank you so much, Timothy. I really loved your energy, and I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Sending you much love, and please enjoy the simple things in life. We sometimes think too much about what we don't have, and we forget to be thankful and grateful for those very simple things, like sending somebody a message, and then getting on a conversation and having a wonderful conversation without even knowing the person beforehand, like what happened between us. I mean, it's just being thankful for those very simple things, it's when you allow yourself to be thankful for those things, they become magical. Things that might seem very simple before you appreciate them, when you do appreciate them, you start kind of looking in more detail, to these things, and realizing, oh, it's like pretty awesome what just happened. So yeah, thank you, Timothy, for being there and for sharing all your love and your wisdom with everybody. Bye, everybody.